Gambling has become the lifeblood of all sports. It is like peanut butter and jelly now. These two are married together forever. Sports betting has become more normal than saying bless you after a sneeze at this point. If you watch anything sports related, you will be fed endless advertisements for, Hard Rock Casino, betting apps, sportsbook, this kind of thing, out the wazoo. Gambling has just become so deeply intertwined with the sports industries across the board, you just expect it now. Like when someone farts, you're expecting stink. It's the same thing here with sports. And with the normalization of all of this gambling, we're now starting to see things like this. A bombshell investigation and subsequent arrests all around illegal gambling. In total, over 30 people were arrested in this FBI investigation, including some ties to notorious crime families, Mafia involvement here. And amongst those names are some NBA stars that you will definitely recognize. A current player, Terry Rozier, as well as the Portland Trail Blazers head coach, Chauncey Billups, who himself is also an NBA Hall of Famer. Now, I think this is the first of many investigations and arrests of current and former sports players. Because this has become so normalized, I have a very strong hunch that there will be even deeper probes into this industry, and they're going to find a lot of shady shit. They're going to turn over some stones and see a lot of big, pewee, smelly fishiness going on there with game rigging, as well as another thing that came up here is like the sharing of private information in regards to the health of some players. So they'd give insider information that they had the privilege of, like in terms of player injuries, that kind of thing, so that way people could cater their bets to it. In the case of Terry Rozier, he was actually involved in this for game rigging, allegedly, where in one game, he took himself out after a handful of minutes and did not return, and apparently had people betting on his unders, meaning he was going to have an off night. People were betting he would have an off night. He took himself out of the game early. Obviously, he wasn't going to have a superstar performance there, so they cash in a lot off of those unders bet, and apparently he got a huge portion of that. That is one instance here that we have been made aware of. In Chauncey Billups' case, his wasn't game rigging, but instead he was working with illegal poker operations where they were using like fucking high-tech technology that you'd only see out of like James Bond's Q laboratories, where he would have victims lured in there. He'd be like the face of it to like use his fame as a means of luring people into these illegal poker games with all of these bad actors. And they'd go to these tables that had X-ray machines so they could read the face-down cards. They'd also have marked cards. They'd even have like the card shuffler would have a way of telling them what cards were dealt to who or something to that effect. Just crazy technology in order to cheat and steal the money from all of these victims, and they made many, many millions of dollars doing this. Now, I also wouldn't be surprised to learn if Chauncey Billups was also engaging in game rigging. Of course, that is not anything that's been revealed publicly or anything. I'm just saying I personally wouldn't be surprised to learn that based on some of the very questionable decisions I've seen him make as the Trailblazers head coach. Absolute bafflingly stupid calls, which, with this new little tidbit of lore here, this little tiddlywink of lore that we got fed here about his illegal gambling activities, maybe they weren't accidentally idiotic decisions. Maybe it was purposeful game throwing, possibly, to make money off betting against his team. Obviously, that's not an accusation from me or anything like that. I'm simply stating that if they do happen to find a little information about Chauncey Billups, maybe, throwing games on purpose, I certainly wouldn't be raising an eyebrow in shock. You wouldn't find me with my jaw on the floor, starting to argue against it like, no, it couldn't be. Because, man, have I seen some absolutely fucking atrocious calls from this guy as the head coach of the Trailblazers. But again, I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just saying, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world to learn there is all. But it's not an accusation or an allegation that I'm putting against him. Just saying. Anyway, though, like I said, many people have been arrested here, but these are the two most notable from the NBA. There's also a former NBA player as well that is in the mega mix of all of this. But it is fucking huge. And it's even been hinted at in the reporting that there are other suspects that just haven't been indicted yet. But they have them under the microscope, and I think it's really just a matter of time. With how normalized sports betting has become, I think this is the first of many huge investigations and arrests that we're going to see over the next few years. There is no doubt in my mind, for a long time now, players, coaches, staff have probably been trading information or even engaging in some like game rigging here and there in order to make very big oodles of cash through gambling. Because the money they stand to make through gambling is substantial. So I have no doubt that there has probably been a huge network of sports athletes, as well as coaches, staff, and all of that, maybe even officials as well, that has been engaging in this. And this is a huge deal. And like I said, I believe this is definitely not like an isolated incident. I think there will be probably a lot more over time here, because gambling has just become so normalized, and it is such like a wasteland in terms of like degeneracy and people looking to exploit one another. I just really think with how normalized it's become, how big it is in just like the culture of sports right now, there is no doubt in my mind a lot of athletes and a lot of people on the staff have probably engaged to a certain degree in many illegal activities in this sector. So while I'm not necessarily, super stunned to learn that this kind of thing has been happening, there was a piece of it that I did not expect, and it did catch me off guard, which was the Mafia involvement and the illegal poker games that Chauncey Billups was the face of and luring people into. That I didn't expect at all. The game rigging, that was brought up here, that I kind of always had a hunch was probably something that was happening here and there. But the Mafia illegal poker games with the crazy fucking technology, like the sci-fi tech that they were utilizing there, straight from DARPA, that was definitely something interesting. I'd like to show you some news clips or like some segments that cover that in particular, but I've just been so wary about showing that now since what happened when I covered the degenerate doctor that would walk around naked and masturbating in the office on people and whatever. So I'm going to refrain from showing you that footage, but I do encourage you to look more into it yourself because it is fascinating. I'm very curious to see how the NBA handles this, because they've been very upfront about, sports betting just being super okay, big two thumbs way up in the air, brings in a lot of money for them. If you watch any of the games, you are inundated with gambling. It is not something they try and hide or shy away from. It is up in your face. And that's not exclusive to just the NBA, but since 3 big NBA names have now been indicted here, I am curious to see how they handle this. I know they released like a pseudo statement about, the disappointment and like how they need to look at things a little differently here, but I do wonder what meaningful changes they're going to make. Because sports betting has been so normalized and such a huge core component of these sports in the first place, what do? They can't really like break it off cold turkey or anything. I feel like it's going to be really hard to like crack down on athletes and staff and stuff like that to like ensure this doesn't happen again. I'm just really interested to see what steps they're going to take. So I'm going to definitely be keeping my eyes on this going forward. And anyway, that's really about it. See ya.